Is the S.P.T.V toxic controversy working? Not really. Unless you're Aaron. Impact of the controversy. The controversy surrounding Aaron Smith-Levin and the Aftermath Foundation, as well as the broader issues within S.P.T.V, has likely intensified discussions and engagement within the community. This is evidenced by the high volume of messages and the concentrated activity among a small group of users. However, the data also shows a decline in unique user engagement over time, suggesting that the controversy might be driving away some users or leading to community polarization. Growing Up in Scientology. As the channel with a dominant subscriber base, it is in a prime position to benefit from the controversy. The heightened attention and the channel's ability to shape the narrative mean that Aaron Smith-Levin can capitalize on increased viewership and engagement. The controversy may reinforce his influence over smaller channels, as they may align with his perspectives to maintain support and exposure from his larger platform. Smaller channels, while potentially benefiting from increased exposure through association with Growing Up in Scientology, are also at risk. The controversy might force them into a difficult position where they need to choose between aligning with Aaron Smith-Levin's narrative or risking alienation from his large subscriber base. If they align closely with Levin, they could gain short-term benefits, but this might come at the cost of losing authenticity or alienating parts of their audience who disagree with the dominant narrative. Long-term risks. The controversy appears to have a polarizing effect, which could be detrimental in the long term. Channels that are closely tied to Aaron Smith-Levin may benefit in the short term through increased visibility and engagement, but they risk losing their distinct identity and credibility if they are perceived as simply echoing his views. This could lead to a more homogenized and less diverse community, ultimately limiting the growth potential of these smaller channels as independent voices. Why are they doing it? S.P.T.V over time. The graph shows views, likes, and comments across all channels, with a clear shift in engagement patterns after the November 2023 controversy. Views were higher earlier in 2023, with significant spikes, but dropped and stabilized afterward, indicating that the initial content or narrative attracted broader interest. However, after the controversy in November, while views did not reach the earlier peaks, they experienced periodic spikes, suggesting that certain controversial topics re-engaged audiences. Likes follow a similar pattern, with the largest spikes occurring alongside high-view videos early in 2023. After the controversy, likes remained consistent with periodic peaks, but overall engagement was lower than at the beginning of the year. This suggests that while viewers continued to engage with the content, it was likely the more controversial or polarizing videos driving these spikes post-November. Comments, however, tell a more compelling story. There is a noticeable spike in comment activity after November 2023, far exceeding previous engagement levels. This likely reflects heightened viewer interaction driven by the controversy surrounding Aaron Smith-Levin and the Aftermath Foundation. While views and likes decreased, the increase in comments suggests more intense debates or toxic discussions within the community during this time, indicating that the controversy spurred greater interaction among the remaining audience. Superchat plus YouTube earnings. The graph compares Superchat earnings with estimated YouTube ad revenue across multiple channels. Based on the methodology used to estimate earnings, the model used factors like views, likes, and comments to predict earnings, with a conservative CPM of $2. Dominance of Growing Up in Scientology. Aaron Smith-Levin's channel, Growing Up in Scientology, leads by a wide margin in total earnings, accumulating around $120,000 from both Superchats and estimated ad revenue. Approximately 70% of these earnings come from Superchats, indicating significant financial support from viewers through live interactions, reinforcing the importance of live engagement for this channel's revenue stream. Smaller channels punching above their weight. Despite having only around 20,000 subscribers, channels like Relatable Reese and Scientology, Life After a Cult, still earn significant amounts, largely from Superchats. While their earnings are smaller compared to Growing Up in Scientology, These channels are doing exceptionally well, considering their much smaller audience size. This suggests that relative to their subscriber count, these smaller channels have managed to cultivate highly engaged communities that contribute financially via live chats. Smaller channels' limited earnings. Channels like Oh No Nora, Sarge Delmar, and Kelly Copter show considerably lower overall earnings, with super chats contributing less. These channels may struggle to attract the same level of live engagement and are more dependent on their ad revenue, which is comparatively low. The earnings disparity highlights the financial influence of larger platforms like Growing Up in Scientology. Conclusion: this graph clearly shows that channels with higher super chat engagement, particularly those involved in live streams, tend to generate more revenue, suggesting that viewer interaction plays a pivotal role in financial success. The strong correlation between live engagement and earnings explains why some creators may encourage controversial or attention-grabbing content to boost live participation, and consequently, their super chat revenue. Top 15 authors by super chat amount. This graph highlights that a small number of users provide the bulk of the super chat revenue, with the top 2 contributors being particularly influential. This financial backing could explain why content creators might cater to or align their content to engage these high-paying users, potentially fostering an environment where toxic behaviors that drive higher engagement are tolerated or encouraged for monetary gain. This graph shows the top 15 contributors by super chat amount, highlighting the financial contributions made by different users via super chat. Here are the key insights. High contributors. Blake Reed is the highest super chat contributor, having donated $4,024.45, followed closely by Tampa B Man with $3,867.22. These 2 users contribute significantly more than the rest of the list, indicating they are key financial supporters of the channel. Concentration of contributions. The top 5 contributors, Blake Reed, Tampa B Man, Panvo, Alicia, and Nancy Sturgeon, have all donated over $2,000 each. This suggests that a small group of highly engaged users are driving the majority of super chat revenue, reinforcing the idea of financial dependency on a few big contributors. Sustained contributions from other users. The remaining contributors, while donating smaller amounts, ranging from $1,043 to $2,092, still make up a significant portion of the total super chat revenue. These users represent a more sustained but less concentrated source of financial support. Top 20 videos by likes. Videos with the most likes align with those that have the highest views and comments. Popular videos like My Final Statement on the Aftermath Foundation saga and those related to Danny Masterson's legal issues attract a large number of likes, further solidifying the correlation between controversial content and higher engagement. This graph shows the dominance of Growing Up in Scientology in the top 20 most viewed videos. With multiple videos surpassing 200,000 to 300,000 views, this channel leads the ranking, driven by celebrity-focused content related to Scientology, like Danny Masterson and Shelley Miscavige. The Aftermath Foundation is a secondary topic in these videos, indicating that this channel does not need to rely on direct attacks on the foundation to drive views, focusing on broader Scientology controversies instead. This graph suggests that Growing Up in Scientology benefits from wider Scientology scandals rather than Aftermath-specific content. It engages a broader audience and only occasionally targets the Aftermath Foundation, potentially for personal reasons or to stir controversy. Top 20 videos by comments. This shows that Growing Up in Scientology doesn't need to rely on toxic Aftermath content to secure audience approval. General interest in broader Scientology topics provides sufficient engagement and support from its audience. This graph highlights the number of comments on the top 20 videos, with Growing Up in Scientology again leading in terms of engagement. Videos on controversial Scientology topics attract a large number of comments, but only a few discussions seem to center on the Aftermath Foundation. Instead, the majority of comments reflect interest in broader celebrity scandals or Scientology-related issues. Here, Growing Up in Scientology proves it can generate high engagement on non-Aftermath content, suggesting that it does not rely on fostering toxicity about the foundation to keep its audience active. The comments in this case indicate that broader Scientology topics are engaging enough on their own. Top 20 videos by views. The most viewed videos focus on controversial and sensational topics, such as Danny Masterson's legal troubles, Tom Cruise's association with Scientology, and updates about key figures like Leah Remini and Shelley Miscavige. This graph shows the dominance of Growing Up in Scientology in the top 20 most viewed videos. With multiple videos surpassing 200,000 to 300,000 views, this channel leads the ranking, driven by celebrity-focused content related to Scientology, like Danny Masterson and Shelley Miscavige. The Aftermath Foundation is a secondary topic in these videos, indicating that this channel does not need to rely on direct attacks on the foundation to drive views, focusing on broader Scientology controversies instead. This graph suggests that Growing Up in Scientology benefits from wider Scientology scandals rather than Aftermath-specific content. It engages a broader audience and only occasionally targets the Aftermath Foundation, potentially for personal reasons or to stir controversy. Channels dependency. Top 20 videos by likes excluding Growing Up in Scientology. This illustrates how smaller channels rely heavily on Aftermath-related attacks to generate positive feedback from their viewers. Their success is intertwined with their ability to create content that fosters toxic narratives about the foundation. For smaller channels, the graph reveals that videos targeting the Aftermath Foundation receive the most likes. The engagement from viewers comes when they approve of content that attacks or discusses the foundation, illustrating a clear link between toxic content and audience approval in these smaller communities. Videos without this focus often receive significantly fewer likes, suggesting a lack of audience interest when the content moves away from controversy. Top 20 videos by comments. Excluding Growing Up in Scientology. The engagement in comments on these videos signals that targeting the Aftermath Foundation fuels discussion and drives interaction, something the smaller channels heavily rely on to maintain relevance in the absence of broader Scientology scandals. Excluding Growing Up in Scientology, this graph reveals that videos from smaller channels gain significant comment activity when they focus on the Aftermath Foundation. These videos, although generating fewer views overall, still provoke a high number of comments, indicating the controversial nature of the foundation within these communities. Smaller channels use discussions around the foundation to trigger higher comment engagement, reflecting their dependency on controversy. Top 20 videos by views, excluding Growing Up in Scientology. This graph underscores the heavy reliance of smaller channels on Aftermath-related content. Without broader Scientology scandals to cover, they resort to consistent attacks on the Aftermath Foundation to maintain their audience engagement, showing their dependence on toxic content for survival. Relatable Reese stands out as an exception, both in terms of viewership and toxicity score, as seen from the prior toxicity report. The channel manages to have some viewership without relying heavily on Aftermath-related toxicity, making it less dependent on the toxic narrative for survival. When excluding Growing Up in Scientology, smaller channels like Relatable Reese, Scientology, Life After a Cult, and Liz Gale dominate the graph. The view counts drop significantly, and many of these top-performing videos focus directly on attacking the Aftermath Foundation or its members. The viewership ranges between 30,000 to 44,000, highlighting that these channels depend on toxic narratives about the foundation to stay relevant. Correlation between metrics. Likes, comments, and views. Strong correlation. There is a strong correlation between views, likes, and comments across these videos. The more sensational or controversial the content, the higher the engagement across all three metrics. Videos that generate a lot of views are also heavily commented on and liked, indicating that viewers are not only watching, but also engaging with the content. Engagement-driven content. Content that centers on high-profile controversies, like the Danny Masterson case, Leah Remini's statements, and claims about Tom Cruise, consistently drives up all engagement metrics. This suggests that creators may focus on producing similar content to maximize audience interaction, likely because these topics trigger emotional responses and heated discussions. High comment-to-view ratios. Some videos with lower views still garner a high number of comments, such as responding to Mike Rinder's lies. This indicates that certain topics, especially those addressing conflicts or accusations, spark more in-depth viewer interaction, even if the view count is lower. Conclusion: these graphs highlight that controversial and conflict-driven content generates the most engagement in terms of views, comments, and likes. Creators may strategically produce such content to boost interaction, as high engagement often leads to greater visibility and revenue potential through platforms like YouTube, where viewer interaction directly influences algorithmic promotion. This narrative demonstrates how smaller channels survive off of toxic aftermath content, while Growing Up in Scientology uses it selectively to stir controversy or achieve personal goals. This insight should help emphasize the different motivations and dependencies of each channel, highlighting the contrast between personal vendettas and survival tactics. Thanks for watching. Auf Wiedersehen, Servus und Tschüss.